Her children vanished. Her town is grieving. The country is still searching. And yet, Malaya Brooks Murray has barely spoken a word. No press conferences, no pleas, no desperate cries for help. Some said trauma, some said shock. But now a new question is spreading across every thread and comment section. Is she really silent because she's broken, or because her lawyer told her to stay that way? Because here's what we now know. Just days after Lily and Jack Sullivan disappeared, Malaya was already under legal counsel. Not a grief counselor, not a family advocate, a lawyer. And from that day forward, not a single emotional statement escaped her lips. No crying interviews, no begging the public to find her babies. Just silence. Silence that feels less like sorrow and more like a strategy. Daniel Martel talked too much. Malaya barely said a thing. One looked frantic, the other looked rehearsed. So we have to ask, is this the silence of an innocent mother trying to protect a case, or the silence of someone being carefully coached not to incriminate herself? Because lawyers don't protect grief, they protect liability. If Malaya knows more than she's said, and someone told her to stay quiet, then her silence isn't tragic, it's tactical. And if that's true, then the truth about Lily and Jack isn't just missing, it's being managed. Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover might finally explain why the loudest sound in this case has been the mother who refuses to speak. But before we dive into this, kindly subscribe to our channel if you believe in fighting for justice. We've just crossed 4,000 subscribers, all because of your support, and we need that same energy to reach 5,000, then 6,000, and then 10,000. So go ahead and drop your fingerprints on that subscribe button and where you're watching from, because wherever you are, the day this vision is fulfilled, I will send my appreciation straight to you. Let's keep building this community that fights for justice together. In the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan, no response has been louder than Malaya's silence. While search teams combed the woods, while neighbors held vigils and reporters begged for answers, the children's mother, the one person everyone expected to speak, said nothing. At first, many believed it was because she was traumatized, that she was too broken to face the cameras. But over time, something changed. Because it wasn't just silence out of grief, it was silence with structure. Silence without a single slip, not even in private messages or social media. Silence that suddenly looked less emotional and more intentional. And then it came out. Just days after Lily and Jack vanished, Malaya retained legal counsel. Quietly, no announcement. Just a lawyer brought in behind the scenes. And from that moment on, not a word was spoken unless it passed through him first. So now the question isn't just why won't she talk? The question is who told her not to? Is Malaya protecting herself from public judgment? Or is her lawyer protecting her from exposure? Exposure to the truth about what happened in that home the night her children disappeared. If Malaya's silence is not her own, but a legal strategy prepared to shield her from future charges, then every moment she has stayed quiet has not been mourning. It has been preparation. Because in this case, silence may not be sorrow, it may be a defense. From what investigators and local records have confirmed, Malaya Brooks Murray secured legal counsel astonishingly early. Some sources claim her lawyer was present less than 48 hours after the missing persons report was filed. Others believe it may have even been within the first 24. Either way, it was fast, much faster than anyone expected. This wasn't a situation where a mother made a public plea and then turned to a lawyer after public pressure. There was no plea. There were no cameras, just paperwork and silence. Daniel, on the other hand, waited days, maybe even weeks, before speaking formally with an attorney. And during that gap, he spoke freely. To family, to Facebook groups, to strangers online. He spoke so much that many now believe he damaged his own position. But Malaya, she did the opposite. She locked down early. She spoke to no one. And everything that followed, her absence from searches, her disappearance from vigils, her refusal to make even a short emotional plea, was defended under the same phrase, "I've been advised not to comment." And that raises a chilling question. When a child goes missing, Most parents do anything, talk, cry, scream, to bring that child home. But Malehya's first instinct was to protect herself legally, not emotionally. That may tell us everything about who she is, or what she already knows. A lawyer's first rule is simple: protect the client. Not the truth, not the public, not the investigation, the client. And when a high-stakes criminal investigation begins, the safest move for any lawyer is silence. They call it risk management, because the moment a person begins speaking publicly, especially in emotionally charged cases, they expose themselves to contradictions, memory errors, and words that can later be used against them under oath. A skilled defense attorney knows that talking too early can destroy any possibility of a plea deal. They know that one misplaced sentence can look like self-incrimination in a courtroom. So they lock everything down. No press, no online posts, no family interviews, total media blackout. And that may be exactly what happened with Malaya. If she is innocent, her lawyer might simply be preventing her from being misquoted or bullied into saying something unstable in a moment of breakdown. Some people fall apart in front of a camera. Lawyers know that. But if she has something to hide, even if it's not the children's disappearance itself, but what led to it, the lawyer's silence becomes more than a shield. It becomes a strategy. And in cases like this, silence rarely looks neutral. It either looks deeply suspicious or very calculated. Daniel Martel couldn't stop talking in those first 2 weeks. His words spilled across Facebook groups, local threads, private chats. He gave updates no one asked for. He shared timelines that kept shifting. He insisted he was cooperating with police for 100 hours. He told people it wasn't an abduction, then suggested maybe someone close took them. He contradicted himself, corrected others, and tried to control every rumor until eventually his behavior started to look like panic, more than grief. Malaya did the exact opposite. She vanished behind a wall of legal silence almost immediately. No emotional pleas to bring her babies home. No interviews on camera. No live streams. No accidental slips. She didn't even attend all the search events. One parent couldn't stop speaking. The other refused to utter a single public word. And that contrast has now become one of the most disturbing patterns in this entire investigation. To some people, Daniel looks guilty because he talked too much. He looked unstable. He scrambled. He may have revealed more than he should have. To others, Malaya looks even more suspicious because she spoke so little that it feels orchestrated, controlled by legal guidance, protected, not grieving. One parent wrote his own narrative in public. The other allowed no narrative at all. So we must ask the uncomfortable question, not as a rumor, but as a point of analysis: which form of behavior is more terrifying in a missing child case? A man who is all noise and contradictions, or a woman who says absolutely nothing, because someone behind closed doors told her to stay quiet? And in that silence, is there grief or strategy? Legal silence isn't random. It's protective. It's sharp. And it always points to something worth hiding, whether it's guilt or fear. So what exactly could Malaya's lawyer be shielding her from? Investigators have hinted, quietly, off record, that there were multiple inconsistencies in Malaya's recounting of the morning Lily and Jack vanished. Little slips in the timeline, moments she remembered differently each time, details about what time she woke up, who marked the kids absent, what she heard, or claimed not to hear. In those early hours alone, these inconsistencies might not prove anything, but to a defense attorney, they are landmines. One wrong word, and the entire story collapses. Then there's the bigger possibility: involvement. Maybe not direct violence, maybe not abduction, but knowledge. She may know exactly what really happened, and she may have known from the moment the children disappeared. If she spoke freely, she could accidentally expose that knowledge. And a lawyer's job isn't to correct the truth, it's to control it. There are also rumors, unconfirmed but growing, that Malaya may have already spoken to police early on, before the lawyer stepped in, and may have signed something. A preliminary statement, a written account, or possible confession that doesn't align with later events. If that's true, her attorney would now be working overtime to prevent that information from leaking into the public, or being used against her before a formal trial ever begins. So her silence isn't just emotional distance. It looks more and more like a wall. A strategic, constructed wall, meant to keep questions from getting too close, and meant to protect something much bigger than grief. The question is, what exactly is behind that wall? This wouldn't be the first time a mother in a missing child case was advised to stay silent. Take Casey Anthony, for example. Her daughter Kaylee disappeared, and during those crucial first days, Casey barely spoke except through carefully controlled statements. Her legal team locked her down. No raw interviews, no emotional breakdowns on television. She showed up in court with a calm face and a controlled posture. The public found her silence eerie, and ultimately her lawyer used that silence to shield her from early prosecution. Then there's Letitia Stock, stepmother of 11-year-old Gannon Stock. She too refused prolonged interviews, refused to plead for the boy's safe return once the lawyers came in. Every time she opened her mouth, her attorney seemed to pull her back. By the time the truth came out, the silence had already turned into a mask. Everyone distrusted. In both cases, silence became as suspicious as any piece of physical evidence. It wasn't just grief. It was a legal strategy, a calculated move to limit liability and control narrative. And it worked, at least for a while. Both women avoided early charges because prosecutors had to work around their silence just to build a timeline. So now we ask, is Malaya following the same strategy? Is this the silence of a defenseless mother, or the silence of someone who knows her words could destroy her? Because when you look at the pattern, it's not hard to see the blueprint. Child disappears, mother is questioned, lawyer steps in, silence follows. Is history repeating itself? To be fair, there are still people, especially in cases like this, who insist that a mother in trauma shouldn't be expected to speak on command. They say the world is cruel to grieving women, that if she cries too hard she's unstable, and if she doesn't cry at all she's a monster. Some believe Malaya's silence might simply be her body in shock, refusing to process a nightmare too heavy to name. Others point out that she may be terrified. Terrified of Daniel, terrified of someone else connected to this case. Terrified that if she says the wrong thing, she'll lose any chance of seeing her children alive again. They speak of PTSD, disassociation, the horrifying freeze response that comes when your world shatters overnight. And they insist, no mother grieving her children owes her pain to a camera or a news conference. But silence becomes a different entity when it's carved, shaped, and managed by a lawyer. Trauma is jagged. It spills over. It comes in sobs you can't schedule. It leaks through phone calls and shaky breaths. But Malaya's silence hasn't leaked. It hasn't cracked. It hasn't slipped once. From the day that lawyer entered the picture, every word, or lack of one, appears to have been planned. And that's what unsettles people. There's a difference between a mother who can't speak because she is broken, and a mother who won't speak because someone told her not to. Yes, perhaps she is scared. Yes, perhaps she's hurt in ways we can't imagine. But silence handled through an attorney is not the silence of a traumatized woman. It's the silence of legal strategy, crisis management, and protection from accountability. So the defenders can say she's grieving. But the truth is, grief is messy. Her silence, it's not messy at all. It's precise, calculated. And that is not how trauma usually behaves. It didn't take long for people in Lansdowne Station to notice that something felt off. When a child goes missing, the first thing a town expects is urgency. Parents knocking on doors, calling neighbors, handing out flyers, begging for help. But Malaya didn't do any of that. She didn't organize a search. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't stand in the center of town holding a candle. She vanished behind a wall of silence, while the rest of the community stood in the rain, calling her children's names. There were vigils with dozens of people, complete strangers praying for the kids, and Malaya wasn't there. There were community gatherings, Facebook forums, parents searching the woods at night, and she still wasn't there. No interviews, no pleas to the public, like we've seen in case after case. And people began to whisper, if she's innocent, why is she so quiet? Then, when her lawyer stepped in, Any remaining contact stopped completely. Even extended family members said she wasn't returning calls. She wasn't sharing progress. She wasn't cooperating with people who wanted to help. The lawyer had become the gatekeeper, and everything had to go through him. To the town, it looked like she had gone into hiding. Not because she was afraid for her children, but because she was afraid of something else. And that's when suspicion hardened. Because no matter how much compassion people tried to have, the pattern was unmistakable. The more legal protection she got, the less involved she became in the search. The louder the community's grief grew, the quieter she chose to be. So the townspeople began asking the one question they never thought they'd ask about a missing children's mother. Is she not speaking because she's hurting, or because she knows? Lawyers aren't criminals, but sometimes they shield criminals without even realizing it. Their loyalty is to the client, not the truth. And in this case, Malehya's lawyer stepped in with speed, precision, and total control. No public statements, no emotional slips. Every interaction now filtered, sanitized, legally approved, which begs the question, what exactly is he protecting her from? Some legal experts have quietly suggested that her attorney might have reviewed evidence the public hasn't seen, phone records, text messages, deleted content from her devices. It's possible she said or did something the night before the children disappeared. Something incriminating enough that he had to silence her before it reached investigators or reporters. If that's true, and he's now helping shape her story behind closed doors, then this isn't just legal counsel. It's a cover-up in progress. Think about it. If Malaya admitted to knowing what happened, but claimed she didn't participate, a lawyer could still advise her to stop talking to avoid obstruction charges. If she accidentally confessed during an early police interview, without representation, her lawyer might be trying to bury that version of events before a jury ever hears it. And if she and Daniel were both involved in something that went too far, an attorney might be preserving her chance to blame him later in court. The more you look at it, the clearer it becomes. Silence isn't just silence. It's architecture. It's defense. And it might be the one thing keeping Malaya safe from facing the truth under oath. Because sometimes the lawyer is the difference between a witness and a suspect. There's a reason the law allows silence. It's a constitutional right. But the law wasn't written for missing children. It was written for defendants. And here is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire story. Lawyers protect their clients, but they don't protect children. A child can disappear, and an attorney's job is still to protect the adult who may know more than they are saying. To make sure they don't speak. To make sure they can't be cornered by their own words. To make sure nothing leaves their lips, except what serves their defense. That is how the system works. But if Malaya Brooks Murray knows something, even a fraction of what really happened the morning Lily and Jack vanished, and she's being told to keep quiet, then her silence is not grief. It's not shock. It's not trauma. It's strategy. It's protection. It's a legal barrier built between the truth and the children who deserve it. Her silence isn't a wound. It's a decision. And while she sits behind a lawyer's shield, 2 children remain missing. 2 small faces that will never get that kind of legal representation. No attorney is speaking on their behalf. No silence is protecting their innocence. So we are left with this tragic imbalance. One woman's silence is preserved and protected, while an entire town is left to search for voices that can no longer speak. So now I'm turning this over to you. Is Malaya silent because she's innocent, or because someone told her to shut her mouth before the truth slipped out? Is this the sound of trauma, or the sound of strategy? Because if this is her lawyer's doing, then the silence we keep mistaking for grief is actually something much colder. A calculated pause, a shield, a way to buy time, while the trail grows colder. But if she truly is broken by what happened to Lily and Jack, then why does her silence feel practiced? I want your thoughts, and only your honesty. No insults, no slander, just analysis. Drop your opinion in the comments. Is she protecting herself? Is someone instructing her? Or is this still the silence of a mother in pain? Every comment, every angle, helps bring this case into clarity. And we need clarity more than ever. Because Lily and Jack aren't here to speak for themselves.